Welcome to the first episode of 2024. This is beginning season 2 of this podcast, and I could not be more grateful that I'm making it to a season 2 and that you are here with me. But one of the awesome things is that I have really poured my heart and soul into this podcast. This is like one of the biggest things for 2024 for me that I really want to put a lot into because I understand the power of like getting that knowledge out there so that you can take it and you can begin implementing it. Because I feel like I've been learning so much for the last several years, especially a lot, I think, in this last year, doing this business of design work and branding and marketing. That there comes this time where you take what you learn and then you really start to understand it to the point where, how am I implementing this? How am I actively living this out? And that kind of brings me into today's topic, which is about crafting your unique brand story. Now, you may have heard of brand stories, brand messaging, the power of storytelling when you're building a personal brand so that you can create something that really resonates with your audience, with your potential clients, your community. And there is a lot of power in that. Every day you are building on top of your foundational brand story. Every day you're working toward this bigger overarching goal. And I think the really cool thing about a brand story is that as you're starting out, it's more futuristic. You're looking towards like, here's the end goal of really what I want to help with, really what I want to do, even though I haven't done much of it yet. This is my aspiration. This is my mission. Whereas if you've been in business for a while, you get kind of that aspect of both a past foundational brand story and still that futuristic one that you're building. And what I mean by that past type of story is the fact that like you've already had so much that you have been doing, that you have been learning. This whole idea of like every day is a page of a chapter of our lives, of our business and the things that we're doing. So you're constantly building this story, painting this picture, if you will, of what your business is so that other people can read that, other people can listen to that, they could see that, and they can understand why your business exists. It really is the story of why your business is here. What is it going to do? What has it done? How does it connect with me, the individual? How does it connect with me? And it has to connect on this emotional level. It has to connect in a way that's very relatable. You can entertain with it. You can educate with it. You can, do a lot of different things with your story. I mean, think about it. How many books are out there? How many stories do we read? Some are very heart-wrenching. Some are like those absolute, favorites that we have that we're just like, oh, I feel so engrossed in it and absolutely love it. Others are like, this was hilarious. And then there's some that don't quite hit that standard, that bar of like, well, it's an okay book. Could have been better. We want your brand story to be like, oh my goodness, I want to keep coming back and reading this over and over again. This is my favorite. I want to recommend it and tell it to everybody. You kind of want to create that raving fan base. And here's a little side tangent is, okay, we have been watching so many sports lately. This season, fall, winter, all this stuff. Like there's so many different sports going on, from basketball, football, hockey, like all the stuff. So my husband loves watching all of it. And one of the things that really grabbed my attention was like, you see this gigantic football field with a stadium that fits like tens of thousands of people. And you'll have people that will show up when it's so freezing cold outside. You have people that will tailgate for hours before the game ever starts. You have people that are like us sitting at home and watching it. And sometimes he gets very animated, rooting for his team, or watching what's going on, like, hey, you need to call that foul or whatever it is. It's like, what actually causes us to really rally around a team or an individual player? What is that? And, it's all because they make such a great story. It's the story of the wins, it's the story of the losses, it's the story of we've never ever made it to the Super Bowl, or we've never ever made it this far before. It's the story of, one player doing something absolutely amazing or epic. Like, no one's had this many, um, I can't even think of a stat right now, but like no one's ever had this many points in a game or whatever it is. We really begin to like rally behind the fact that someone is achieving some sort of high level of success, or they're overcoming some crazy odds. They are working really hard towards something, and we gravitate to that and we get behind that. When your brand story of your business tells about what it is that you're doing, this higher purpose that you're seeking to achieve, maybe it's coaching and helping others achieve results in their lives and, have lasting transformation. When you can tell your story of maybe what impacted you to want to do this and want to help people with this, when you can really get down and define what that story is, how it relates to the service you're offering in coaching or whatever it is that you're doing, when you can add those specifics and those details and be very personal, not just professional. We think business has to be this very professional wording, very professional talk. And yes, there is some call for a certain professional level, but above that, you can do a lot just with kindness and courtesy and still be very, very personal. And that makes you a compelling and resonating brand that people will gravitate to. So I think the sports analogy is really helpful because like most of us, like, we know how crazy some fans can get. We know how dedicated some people are to a certain team for years. It's just like if you were to go shopping and you're like, well, I only like to shop at the store. You have your reasons why. And the people who are doing business with you, they have reasons why they're choosing you over someone else. Because chances are there are lots of other people that do brand design. I know several people that do brand design. And I know lots of people that do coaching and lots of people that do, storytelling and content writing and all this stuff. So there are people out there with skills similar to yours, but your unique brand story is really going to build your business for you. It's really going to build the foundation for what people are coming to you for, or why they're coming to you. Actually, it's going to build that foundation. Like, the quote from the movie where it's like, you build it, they will come. If you build your story, they will come to hear it. When they hear it, they may come and they may stay, and they may be as loyal to you as one of those fans sitting in a stand that's bundled up and freezing and dedicated to being out there for 4 hours to watch the game. We get to that level of having people in our business as clients who are that dedicated to wanting to work with us because they see the level of integrity that we are putting out. They see the level of service that we're putting out. It's not your average, it's your above average, because we're talking like, you know, professional athletes, professional teams. They are above average when it comes to people that play that sport, right? Your business has to become that above average business in some shape, form, or fashion that wows people, that gets them wanting to watch, like, what's the next thing you're going to do? Because I know it's going to be epic when you are putting in that work and being dedicated to giving your clients, your customers, something that they love and that wows them. They're going to stay around. They're not going to stay per se if they can go get the exact same thing somewhere else, maybe at a better price, or maybe, something else is a little bit more catchy for them. When you go a bit above and beyond and you work that much harder, and your brand story has to tell this. It has to tell the level of excellence. It has to make a like, it has to captivate them. If you ever sat down and you read a story or even watched a movie or whatever, and the story just like captivated you, you're like, wow, that was good. Or I was so engrossed the whole time. I wasn't bored, or it lost me in the first 5 minutes or 15 minutes. It was like, man, I just kept wanting to know what was going to happen. Like, I just was so involved. When we can get people involved in our brand story and captivated by it, then we're doing a really good job of building a personal brand that resonates, that is powerful. So you have to dive into uncovering what that is. And the best way to do that, I think a lot of times, is going through some self-discovery. If you're not sure what your brand story is, do a lot of personal growth, inner work, self-discovery. You will figure out what that is. And then the next thing is, once you figure out what that is, really hone in on, what are the exact details? What are the specifics of my story, of my business brand that I'm telling to people? And what do I want them to see? What do I want them to know? What are the details that I want to share with them? Whether it's you're spending hours every weekend getting your certification, or you have put in 20 years in corporate doing this particular task and being in this specific role, because the experience, the training that you have, even if it's in areas that are seemingly unrelated to what you're currently doing, if you've been dedicated to something for a long period of time, if you have always looked for like these positives and different things, and you gain so much from this area of life that you're transferring into what you're doing now with your business, those are all building blocks to your story. They're all specifics that you can be sharing. For instance, a past mentor of mine, she did breathwork sessions like once or twice a month. And what I thought was so interesting was the fact that I found out that part of what she used to do years before this was, she was an EMT. So she worked in high stress situations with people and dealing with different physical ailments and all this different stuff. So like, she had this knowledge of just like how human beings work in very stressful situations. And, when they're maybe not breathing or not breathing well, or they've been in a tragic accident, like, she had this expertise level that maybe others don't have when they do breathwork sessions. So I felt so at ease knowing, like, okay, if she's watching me while I'm doing this, she could pick up on cues where if I'm not breathing properly, or if I'm, getting that emotion brought up when I need to release it. She's able to see those things that somebody who maybe is not trained in that way might not see. I don't know what the certification process is for breathwork training, what all that entails. But I'm like, but she already went into that with a level of knowledge and experience because of her past training. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. Like, I even had a lot of my past jobs, I had to kind of figure out what it was that I was bringing from those into what I'm doing now. So much of what I did was forward facing customer service, from fast food, valet at a hotel in downtown Nashville, to working as a bank teller, and then taking payments at a cell phone provider, and then working as an administrative assistant, like all these different things. I realized that, like, I'm very detail oriented, task oriented, but also customer facing. Like, I've dealt a lot with different people and having to do anything from like process transactions for them, to give them directions, tell them where to go for this or that, or answers the phone, like all these different things. Like, how am I taking that and it translates into branding? Like, I'm still dealing with customers. I have clients that I talk with on a, semi-regular basis. And I am networking and getting to know people. And there's things that people need that I need to be able to kind of figure out and uncover through like asking the right questions. So, a lot of the skills that I had practiced before, they translate into what I'm doing now. It's part of my brand story. So if I want to talk about the fact that I spent, this time in my life doing these different things, and here's how they translate into what I'm doing now. I'm serving people. I'm providing for them a solution or a result that they need for their business. I was doing the same when I was doing, making sandwiches at like 16 years old for people. I was doing the same thing when I was processing transactions at a bank. I was, making sure their money got to their checking or savings account. And the same thing too when I cleaned houses for a time. Like, I was working on creating a clean and nice environment for them to come home to after working. So, like, there's so many things I could talk about that can translate into the brand that I'm building. I want to give people a visually appealing result, as well as a inner feeling of like joy and excitement. I really want them to be able to embrace what they're building. I want them to find that natural joy and excitement for what they're building, for the story they're telling, for the clients that they're serving. That is what I really want to do. So that's kind of my story. What's yours? Dive into working and figuring out what yours is, because I want you to embrace your brand. I want you to embrace your brand story. I want you to craft your very unique and remarkable brand story. It doesn't happen in maybe one sitting. You might uncover like a couple of things, but the practice is when you keep working on, what is it that my business is here to do? Why is it existing? What purpose is it serving? What is the higher potential here? And how do I tell people about it? You have to bring them on this journey with you and invite them in, just like you're handing them a book and saying, just start reading. You're going to love this because you're going to go on this journey with me. You're going to take people along with you. You're going to be serving them, offering them a product, or doing things that's going to enhance their day-to-day, their quality of life, enhance their business, whatever it is. You have a very unique brand story to tell. And I will say this as like the last thing, just to wrap this up. Remember that your brand story constantly moves with you. The next chapter is not written yet. So a lot of people, when they have this pivot or something changes and they kind of shift directions, or they go more into like, I wanna narrow down and really focus on this, they're afraid to. I've even been afraid to do this before, where you're afraid to go in a very select and distinctly focused direction because you're afraid, like, I'm afraid I'm going to be losing people. When you get really specific on what it is you're here for and here to do, and you talk about how you're moving that direction, I think you really inspire people when you do that. You really inspire people when you start to, like, narrow in your focus and work on really mastering something. Mastering your craft, mastering your service, improving your product, whatever it is. When you're telling the story about how you're doing that, you are adding chapters to your brand and adding so many layers, and you're adding just a really good amount of depth. And when you talk about the journey and how it is that you're doing it, what the risks you may be taking, the hopes that you have, the things that you're aspiring to, the things that are inspiring you, they're all so powerful. Even if you're just telling the day-to-day things. I literally, wrote a post just talking about my day of how I could view it as a very dismal day because of what happened, or I could view it as I had been, which was I didn't see any negative of the day. I saw only positives. And I wanted to share that because I wanted to inspire others that we can have the exact same day, but how we view it is different. And I want you to view your story as a beautiful story. I want you to view your story as like, this is the one that's meant for you. Don't compare it to anybody else's. Don't think about it negatively, because even if you've gone through hard things, they're all working to better you for what is coming. They're all like those tough moments where the character goes through something that's a setback and you're like, how is this ever going to work out? And then you realize that that setback was necessary for what was coming. The same thing is happening in your life and your business. Something is happening to prepare you and build you up for what is coming. So I'm just excited to see what's coming for you, to find out what's coming for me, as I'm still uncovering my own brand story, working on telling it, and I'm telling it through this podcast. I am telling it through my email list. I am just telling it through the posts I put on my social media. And I want to keep inspiring you to really embrace your brand. And I would encourage you that if you're not on my email list, I send out one email a week where I share with you a story. I share with you the podcast for the week and a branding tip that is going to help move you forward in your business and in creating a brand that people will just gravitate to, so that you can stand out, you can be seen, you can be sought after. So if you're not on that email list, check the show notes. You'll find the link down there. And I am so thankful you were here. I hope you have a great day.